Hello everyone, welcome to this tutorial for the PMDG 777-300ER with Simbrief flight plan. Let's jump into the flight deck here. Alright, so we're in the flight deck here in this 777. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go down to your EFB, and you might start on this screen. You want to go to ground operations. You want to come down and click or you want to go down to ground power. You can select dual jetway plugs or a single GPU plug under ground power type, whichever you want. So let's do just a single GPU plug, and you can hit request, and it's connecting right or there, and then you can see it appear outside your aircraft, and there it is right there. Okay, so now coming back into the flight deck, um, let's create our Simbrief flight plan. So let's hit the tab key on your keyboard. This brings up your tablet here. Let me just change the view of this. Go to settings, vertical. Let's go to the app Simbrief dispatch. I can click new. And by the way, if you can't tell, we're here at Charlotte Douglas International in Charlotte, North Carolina. All right, so let's just fill out our flight plan here. So we're let's put American Airlines AAL flight number. Just make it up, whatever you want. All right, so we want to depart Charlotte KCLT, and if you know the lettering of your airport, you can put your arrival airport here. If not, you can click the magnifying glass. So let's say we want to go to Dallas, um, Dallas Fort Worth. So you can type in Dallas. Okay, and then you scroll down here. Let's see where there it is. Dallas Fort Worth International. You could select it, and then you can see here. Then you want to come down here to aircraft, scroll down to where you see the 777-300ER or whatever aircraft you have. In this case, it's the 300ER, so we'll click that. And then the airframe, if you click default, and then you could just select yours. So this is the PMDG, so we'll select this one, right? And then we're in America, so let's change the units to pounds. It's an IFR flight, and let's scroll down, take a look at your route here. So go from Charlotte all the way to Dallas, and then just come up and click generate. All right, so now we have generated our flight plan. So what we can do, let's go down to the EFB again. We click on this icon, the electronic flight bag, and then you can request data from Simbrief. So click that. All right, and now you can see it's loaded our flight. And then you can get your weather. You can go down to departure, KCLT, and you can get it in the METAR format, or you can go simple, and that just gives you a better, cleaner breakdown of the weather. So here's your pressure, your wind, um, your temperature, and humidity. I want to say that is. Okay, so once you've got that in, let's go up to the upper overhead panel. All right, and so we connected our ground power in the EFB earlier, and as you can see, it's showing available, so let's click that. You can hear the systems coming on. All right, and just click on your battery, the in-flight entertainment, passenger seats, cabin utility on, your navigation map, GPS. I'm not sure the exact term for the ADIRU, but let's click that on. And arm your emergency lights and close the cover. And then you can turn on your window heat. Okay. And now you can go ahead and turn your seat belts on if you want. All right, so we've got it powered up here. All right, and then if you want to set your pressure, you can go back to your EFB, and right here you can see the current pressure at Charlotte is 30.02. So let's go to the main panel here, and you can see down here is the pressure at 29.92, but we want to change that to 30.02. So we go to our baro dial, and let's just dial it in here. 30.02, there we go. And if you're not flying on VATSIM, if you're just doing a flight by yourself, you can go ahead and dial in your cruising altitude, which in this case it is, let's see, 38,000 feet. So we can go ahead and dial that in. Let's click the 1,000. All right, there we go. Got our cruise altitude dialed in. All right, so now what we want to do is go down to the FMC. Let's go to, we can go to FMC if you click that. And make sure your the Iraq data is current. So this is so today is July 4th, which this is showing that it's good until July 9th. So we should be good there. There's your model 777-300. Okay, and you should get this message inertial position. Just clear that out down here. Pause init. So just click this button. Alright, so now you want to set your GPS coordinates. So what you can do is click on this button right here by these coordinates, and then you can paste them right here by clicking this button. Okay, let's go to route. We've loaded our Simbrief flight plan. So now let's go to route request. So click on this button, and there you can see the Simbrief route KCLT, which is Charlotte, to KDFW, which is Dallas. So we can click this button here. All right, and so here's our information. We've got our cruise altitude, our cost index, the distance, zero fuel weight, reserves, and block fuel. And if you want, you can hit tab on your keyboard and bring up the Simbrief flight plan that you generated and make sure that these numbers match um, what's on this flight plan. So flight level 380 is correct. That's correct. Cost index of 28, which is correct. The block fuel 55.2. So you do, let's see, 55.2. That's good. All right, so things are looking pretty good. So let's set the payload. All right, now it says Simbrief payload set, and you can set the fuel. So set the fuel. Okay, and then if you set your fuel, you can see here it's pulled in the 55.2, and then we can just clear out those messages. So hit the clear button. 1, 2. All right. Now let's hit select route, and then it says route requesting, request sent. Okay, and it says route 1 uplink ready. Looks like descent forecast uplink ready. All right, so let's clear those messages out, and then let's load the route. So click this button. Okay, and you can see it's loading. All right, so, and then when it shows activate, let's click this button beside it. All right, and you can see the exec button has a white light over it, and you just click execute. Okay, and you can even put the runway in here as well. So our departure runway is 18 center. So let's type in um, 18C and click this button beside it. There we go. And now you can click execute. There we go. And then if you come up to your navigational display, you can actually see that it has put the runway here, 18 center there. So that's good. Okay, so now that we have that in there, let's go to perf init. Let's click that button. So things are looking good, matching. So let's click accept. Okay. And then if you come to 0 fuel weight and you hit this button, you should see it come up down here, and click it again. Okay, and that auto populates it, so you don't have to go looking for it again. Okay. So now let's go to the thrust. And for this page, I'm not 100% sure, but what I do, I believe takeoff 2, so just click by 20% and just click that button right here. And then to find your cell temp, if you go to your Simbrief flight plan on your tablet, if you scroll down to your OFP, scroll down to where, let's see, scroll down to where your takeoff data is, and you can see the cell temp right here. In this case, it's 58. Alright, so we can type 58 and then hit the button beside it, and you can see it populates it there. Alright, and then let's go to takeoff. We go to the takeoff page, but what I want to do first is go to, let's see, I click legs. Let's go to our departure arrival page. Alright, so here's where you can select your departure SID and departure runway. So our departure runway was 18 center, and our, let's see, our SID was the Ester 6 departure. So you see it right here. You click that button beside it. Okay, and you can see under SIDs it has put that for us. And the transition is IPTE. Let me see if I have to click this here. Okay, just click that button by it too. So it goes cell, departure runway 18C. So let's click that. This right here you can see. Alright, and then hit the execute button. Alright, and then let's go back to the index. And now we want to go to KDFW or whatever your arrival airport is, and click the arrival button. Alright, so now our star is the Bury 3, so you can see it up here. Let's click that button. And our transition is Yuyun. So let's go down here. You can go next page, and you can see it right there. And click that button. And then down here at KDFW, our arrival runway is 13 right. So you can see it up here, ILS 13 right. So let's click that one. And don't worry about this transition down here. So let's click execute. Okay, and you can see it turn to ACT. I guess that means actualized. Alright, let's go back to the index. Alright, and alright, so we're at the legs page now, and here's your waypoints. And just scroll through your flight plan to make sure there's no discontinuities or anything. So let's go next page, next page, next page. And if you're just flying by yourself and you see this vectors selection, what you can do is I would just come over here to the next waypoint under vectors and click the button. So it's Papa, and then just paste it in the vectors section. Alright, so you can see vectors was taken out, and then the next waypoint is Papa now. And then just hit execute and wait a minute. Alright, and so that's cleared out. Alright, let's go to next page. Alright, and then you can see there it shows now our arrival runway 13 right. Alright, so that flight plan looks good. Alright, so we go back to the beginning, page 1 of 6. And our heading is 250, as you can see right here. So let's go back up to the main control panel and put in heading of 250. Alright, so we come here. We can dial in 250. There we go. Oh yeah, and let's turn the flight directors on. That would help. Let's turn that one on. Turn this one on. Okay. And now let's go back to the FMC. Go back to the init ref page. Alright, let's go back to your takeoff ref page. Under where it says CG, just click the button right here to auto-populate it. This one is 28.6. Just click this button again. Alright, so it looks like it rounded it up to 29. And for the 777, I believe I just normally do flaps 5, so just click 5 and the button beside flaps to populate that. Alright, and now the system has given us our V speeds. So to commit those, alright, there's our V1 is 147. Click that button right here and see this number turns bigger. Let's click by 151 for our VR, and then 155 for our V2. We click that button, and there we go. Okay, so there's our V speeds in. Alright, and let's go back. Let me go back to index. So you also have your approach. I guess you can go ahead and do that. Just click the button. I don't know if we want to do it now, but you could click the button if you're on approach or before approach, and then put it in right here. Your flaps 30 and speed 140. But let's not do it right now. Well, let's go back to the legs page just so we can see our flight plan. Alright, so we're back there. Okay, so after we set our heading, let's set our V2 speed. So let's go back to the init ref button. So our V2 speed is 155. So let's go up to the main control panel again. And right here, let's dial in 155. Alright, so that's in. Let's get a little. See, here's where you can dial in your distance, how close you want to be viewing your navigational display. Okay, now let's also arm LNAV right here and VNAV for our autopilot. Okay, you can see those turn green. And now let's go to the overhead panel and start up the APU, which you want to just turn this dial to start. Actually, let's turn on a fuel pump real quick. Okay, so this one's on, and then let's start the APU. And then it clicks back to on. And let me go ahead and turn on the beacon light. Okay, so now after maybe about a minute or so of waiting, you can see on your display down here that APU is running. Okay, so there you can see the APU is running. Okay, so now if you have the GSX ground services add-on, let's go to the toolbar and you can click GSX, and now is the time you can get ready for pushback. So we can click prepare for pushback and departure. Let's select American GSX choice. Alright, and there's our tug and our guy down here. Alright, so let's go to overhead panel. Let's go ahead and turn the hydraulic system on. So come down here to this one on the right, click it to auto, turn this button on, turn this button on under C1, the one under C2 on, come down to this left dial and click auto, and then these two middle ones go to auto. Okay, and let's turn the other fuel pumps on here. Alright, now that our APU is running, let's disconnect ground power, turn this off. Okay, it goes back to available. You can go back down to your EFB, go to, let's see, don't do this yet. Go to this home button up here, go back to ground operations, and then release the ground power cart. Alright, you can see the icon go away, and since we're getting ready to push back, you can click remove chocks. And since we've turned on hydros, let's go ahead and go down to the flaps, and our flaps were flaps 5, as you can see right here, flaps 5. So let's go ahead and set those. Okay. And you can hear the flaps there. You can see them. Okay, and now you see it says trim 5.00. So let's set our takeoff trim, And what you can do is come down and you see this scale. Right now the diamond is at 4. So there may be another way to do this that I don't know about, but excuse me. So what I do is you can see this little down arrow here on the pitch trim, and just ratchet it up and down, and you would see the diamond start to move down to, we want it to go to 5, so 4, 5, 6, so we want it to go to 5 right here, right? So let's keep doing the pitch trim down until the diamond is level with 5. Alright, there we go. Alright, so our trim is set. Okay, now if you want, you can turn your lights on as normal, but if you're just flying by yourself, um, you know, feel free to turn on whatever lights you want, logo, wing, landing. Alright, then we can go to our EFB real quick, go back to the home, little home icon, go back to electronic flight bag where we can see our flight plan details. Alright, and then it even has the map right here of your flight path, so you can go full screen, right? And then you can also change the map if you have a different map like Navigraph or something right here. It will switch it, so you can switch it back and forth. You can also switch between daytime and nighttime. And then you can zoom in or zoom out using these buttons. So let's zoom in. We can zoom in to Charlotte Airport. We can see the taxiways, everything like that. If you need to know how your taxi route. And let's see, if we click lock location, there it allows us to drag and move around. But I believe if you want to be able to track your aircraft, you can just click that. Alright, so if we just zoom out, zoom out, zoom out, there you can see your waypoints and the flight plan there. Alright, so there's that, and if you want to just hit minimize screen to get back to your details. And then if you get closer to your arrival airport, you can click arrival and get the weather information um, for your approach if you need it. And then there's your alternate airport weather. Then we can also go back to, let's see, go back to the home, go to ground ops, go to door management, and see all doors. Let's arm all doors. Okay. And then I believe we should see, okay, here it says doors auto. Alright. Let's go back to the home icon, electronic flight bag. Okay, there we go. Alright, and we are pretty much set up for pushback and engine start. Alright, let's continue the pushback here. And depending on where your runway is, you know, you can either, depending on which way you need to push back or face. So I can just go to do this to show you just for the sake of it. Alright, so we want to release the parking brake down here. So, all right. All right, so let's start the engine. So come up here to the right engine, turn the dial to start. All right, and then we see the engine down here on this bottom panel starting up. Go ahead and flick on the right fuel switch. Okay, and you can hear it starting up. You see our engine there starting up. Let's let that engine start up here. All right, let's set our parking brake back again. All right, there we go. All right, so this dial went back to normal, so let's start the left engine. And now you can see the left engine spooling up. And then just flick on the left engine fuel switch. All right, so this switch has turned back to normal position, and the numbers are looking stable here. So 23, 23, 23. Everything is looking stable and matching with the engines. Let's go back to our legs page so we have our waypoints here. And now you're ready for taxi. But if this video has helped you, please consider liking, subscribing, all that good stuff, sharing the video, watching till the end. Apparently it really helps out the channel. Any questions, you can just plan to drop those in the comments section. And you guys have a great day and happy flying.